Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Tech Talks with nasscom Insights. I am Prerna Buckshee, Senior Analyst and part of the GCC's Digital Transformation and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Charters at nasscom Insights, and I'll be a host for the day. On behalf of nasscom Insights, I would like to welcome our three esteemed panelists, Raghunath Kulkarni, Senior Technical Leader in Cisco Customer Experience Centers, Aswin Lakshmanan, Director Strategy and Planning, Verizon, and Mohammad Faraz Khan, Partner at Zinnov. So, a brief introduction about our panelists. Raghu is a senior technical leader in Cisco with 13 plus years of experience in supporting complex network security deployments, including next-gen firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, and endpoint malware solutions. Raghu holds multiple certifications from MITRE ATT&CK in cyber threat intelligence and adversary emulation methodology. In addition to this, he also holds CCNP in CyberOps. Furthermore, Raghu has delivered multiple CISO training sessions on network security under the Cyber Surakshit Bharat initiative conducted by MITRE. Raghu has also received the APAC TV Awards for Next-Gen Firewall Rule Optimization. We also have with us Aswin Lakshmanan, who is the Director of Strategy and Planning at Verizon India, and spearheads the strategy and planning organization for the GCC, including strategy, transformation, enablement, enterprise architecture, cloud engineering, strategic engagement, and corporate communication functions of the organization. With a rich experience spanning more than 17 years, Aswin brings forth strong business acumen and skills to remain on the cutting edge, driving key businesses globally, exhibiting capabilities across transformation, architecture, and platforms by conceptualizing strategies and designing, ideating, validating, and scaling business cases towards robust business practices. And our third and final panelist for today's session is Mohammad Faraz, Partner Zinnov, who heads the GCoE Accelerator Practice Gap at Zinnov. He has 15 plus years experience in management consulting and advisory. During his tenure, Faraz has worked with Fortune 1000 companies and provided thought leadership and advisory around center transformation and driving greater value for global organizations from India, which includes working closely with companies on driving innovation, collaborating with the ecosystem, and managing talent effectively. Further, he has also enabled companies to benchmark themselves against the industry and identify best practices and initiatives to grow up the maturity curve. In his last 6 years at Zinnov, Faraz has also advised organizations on their transformation strategies as well as various tangential themes, including building a culture of innovation, ecosystem, collaboration, driving lean operations, running shared services, and so on. A very warm welcome to all of you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Great. So before we jump into the questions, in today's episode, we are going to discuss the key trends, the key GCC trends transforming the telecom and networking landscape, especially in the last couple of years, where we have seen an increased focus on India as a key hub spot for setting up an expansion of GCCs. In fact, in nasscom's recently released Strategic Review 2023 titled Priming for a No Normal Future, we have dedicated a specific sub-theme on how India is increasingly becoming an attractive destination for GCCs to come and set up shop here. This sub-theme is in practice curated based on insights received from multiple leadership interviews that we conducted through November till Jan 2022. Overall, our Strategic Review Report 2023 provides a comprehensive overview of the key trends and development in the Indian tech sector in 2022, as well as lends incisive insights on the outlook of the industry going forward. One of our marquee reports, we would highly recommend all our panelists to consider purchasing this report, which makes for a comprehensive, insightful read. So before we dive into the questions, I would just like to give a brief context of our discussion today, which would quintessentially be focused on various themes such as key transformation drivers, tech focus areas, and so on, captured in our recently released GCC quarterly for Q4 CY 2022. This is the fourth edition of the quarterly bulletin, which nasscom has published in collaboration with Zinnov, and the study encapsulates the significant trends and factors transforming the GCC landscape in India for the fourth quarter of 2022, which is October to December 2022. The compendious publication issued in February 22 provides a consistent overview of the GCC India ecosystem, underscores new GCCs in the ecosystem, with granular insights on their key focus areas, verticals they're operating in, headcount, headquarters, while also covering expansion of centers for established GCCs in India. Furthermore, the current issue encompasses a deep dive into the GCC landscape in the telecom and networking sector, corroborated by detailed case studies from leading enterprises in this space, including Verizon and Cisco. Detailing all the above factors and much more, including a brief explanation of the GCC Intensity Index, which is a multivariate assessment framework created by NASScom and Zinnov since the first edition, and it is a key constituent of our report. I would now request Faraz to take us through some of the key highlights of the recently published India GCC Trends Quarterly Analysis Q4 CY 2022 report, as well as provide an overview of the key trends shaping the GCC landscape in the telecom and networking arena. Over to you, Faraz.
Thanks so much, Prerna, and hi to everyone. I think that the context that you set was perfect, Prerna. This basically, we've partnered with NASScom to create these quarterly reports. And in the essence of these reports are to capture almost real-time trends and insights from the ecosystem, right? What's happening? What's the pulse of the industry as such? So there are 4 reports that are there already, and this is the 4th one. And in essence, what we try to do is capture new GCCs entering India. We look at GCCs expanding across the country, work portfolios that are being brought into the country, industries where that are being represented, as well as the overall talent growth, right? The critical resources that we have. So using all of these parameters, we calculate what we call as the GCC Intensity Index, right? And then glad to inform to our audience that the India GCC ecosystem has been ranked very high on this index 2 times this year, and high in the last 2 quarters, which basically means a lot of activity, a lot of buzz, a lot of organizations doing bringing in more portfolios of work, growing their in-house centers, and driving strategic charters from India. Just to summarize, right? We witnessed about 65 such GCCs entering into India, with 11 of them entering in Q4 alone, right? And what's good to hear is over the past 2 years, the CAGR, the CAGR of this GCC growth has been 5%, which is significantly higher from what we saw from 2015 to 2021, which was about 3%, right? So significant impetus on the growth. And that's of course backed by the entire the remote working and the way we handle COVID, a lot more confidence on the ecosystem that global leaders have right on the India playbook, right? And that's clearly showing in the numbers as well. The other thing is that organizations that are setting up in India are not necessarily setting up for one particular type of work or one particular function, right? They're truly creating what we're calling multi-function centers, right? Where companies are driving engineering, IT, BPM, shared services type of work, all from the start, right? Not necessarily one after the other. This quarter, as part of the insights that we've collected, 73% of these GCCs that have set up with all 3 functions right from word go, right? Which is something that we've not seen in the past, right? As extensive as we've seen this quarter. The other thing that we've also noticed in Q4 is the increase in number of non-US headquartered organizations entering the country. On an average, we typically see about 30% of non-US headquartered companies entering India, whereas this year we've seen that number increase to about 45%, right? Which clearly shows that India as a global hotspot in terms of driving engineering, IT, and BPM work is not only being recognized by the ones in the US, where there's already prone use cases and capabilities, but also in organizations from Europe as well as the APAC region, right? And a special focus and special mention also on Japanese organizations, where we're seeing them kind of focusing on setting up very niche centers in India. Just to add to that, from a location perspective, we clearly see Bangalore continue to be the choice of location when from a new GCC setup, right, with predominant share of organizations are setting up in Bangalore. But from an expansion perspective, right, existing GCCs expanding, we see an equal split between Bangalore and Hyderabad. Right? Hyderabad, given just the ecosystem that that exists there, the infrastructure that we are seeing, as well as the government support, I think Hyderabad is quickly picking up and catching up to Bangalore from a GCC ecosystem perspective. Also, from an expansion point of view, We have about 50 centers that have been established in 2022, and 30% of them alone in Q4. So we've ended on a high almost, right? From a center establishment perspective. And from a telecom and networking sector specific, we've seen no GCCs actually enter in 2022, right? Which is good news for my panelists because their talent is, kind of secure with them. But having said that, existing GCCs have established 10 new centers. So they've actually leveraging India talent a lot more. So 10 new centers being set up in 2022 by telecom organizations. Also, lastly, from a talent perspective, about 70% of this talent is based out of Bangalore and NCR. So huge talent pool in Bangalore and NCR, and that's one of the reasons where, to my earlier point, existing GCCs are trying to look at other locations where they can tap into more of this telecom and networking talent. So I'll keep it at that for now, Prerna, and chime in again later in the conversation.
Thanks so much. Thanks a lot, Faraz. That was indeed a very comprehensive overview of the report findings. And okay, so without further ado, I would now like to jump straight into the questions. To begin with, I would now request Aswin and Raghu to answer the first question. So Aswin, I would request you to go first on this one. In your opinion, what are the key transformation drivers helping telecom and networking GCCs leverage technology to steer digital transformation, not just at the GCC level, but also drive it at an enterprise level for the parent in a lot of instances? For instance, the rollout of 5G services was formally announced in India in the latter half of last year, and 5th gen connectivity has reached close to 50 cities, and the government support in all of this certainly helps propel advancements in this sector. Also, talks of 6G are already doing the rounds in some countries. So lots to look forward to. But I want to understand from your perspective, what are the core drivers leading this digital transformation change for not just the GCC per se, but the parent as well as the sector at a broader level?
Sure. Thanks, Prerna, for the question. Thanks for inviting me to this introduction. And for us, great insights. I actually look at these reports because it gives us a lot of insights in terms of what's happening in the market and helps us keep abreast in terms of what the trends are. And then before I jump onto the question, it's an interesting question, and you spoke about 5G. And I belong to a company, Verizon, which has always been a leader in that space.
Yes.
As many would know, we are the largest telecommunication technology company, one of the largest companies in the world. And what we also have a lot of pride over a period of time is how we have established network leadership. And network leadership would mean that you have to be constantly ahead in terms of what's required. And that's where we were the first when it came to 4G, and also the first when it came to 5G. And we are seeing a lot of use cases that we are working on to explore the untapped potential that 5G can offer. Because there is a lot of value that can be unlocked out of 5G, and I think many of us are looking towards how we can untap those value. And talking about transformation drivers, coming back to your question, I think before we talk about transformation drivers and what technology can play a role, it's important for us to understand on why the transformation is required, right? And invariably, many companies would just go and try to chase what we call as the shiny objects, get to do something transformational in pockets and call themselves that they are digitally transformed. And digital transformation is one of the most used words in both good and bad ways, right? But for me, a company that has been successful like ours, we have looked at the why part of why we do digital transformation. And at any point of time, I think the underlying lever is what you can build as value to the customer, and also in terms of how you can build new business capabilities as well as enhance your current capabilities so that you can serve the customer, thereby providing the best of experience. So the best, or the one important lever that drives the other levers for me, is customer experience. And when I talk about customer experience, we all have gone through this, right? With the digital disruption that has happened, and that digital disruption has actually gone at a higher speed because of what we had to go through the pandemic, where customers have been more adaptive to the whole digital experience. I think what is important for us is to build a seamless experience for customers across the channels and across the touch points as part of their journey. And I think that to me is the most important lever. And once you look at customer experience as the main lever, then you start looking at what would help me providing the best of experience to the customer. And that's where you start looking within and look at how I can do in terms of modernizing my processes, looking at how I can serve the customer better. And as a derivative, you also get to see efficiencies built within the business. And then you start tapping into what are the capabilities that I need to build and what are the skill sets that you need to have. So that's how I would look at in terms of key transformation driver towards digital transformation.
Great. Thanks, Aswin. Those were some great insights. And Raghu, it would be great to know your thoughts on the same question as well.
Yeah, sure. One thing that happened well today was getting a representative from Cisco and Verizon together in the room, because when Ashwin was telling about getting technologies like 5G delivered to masses, at Cisco we truly believe in powering this to ensure that it's an inclusive future for all, right? And in order to reach there, it is possible only when you have a powerful technology stack and a global footprint in order to deliver this. There were a couple of things which we discussed now about digitization and customer experience. If you look at the core of everything, what drives any business use case is what is the user experience and how we help businesses achieve their goal. Success of any business. Now, when I say business, this might include the biggest enterprise in the world to Raghu's Kirana store, to Faraz's clinic, or Ashwin's vegetable vendor market. It can mean any of these businesses, because these businesses now are going through modernization, which means they rely heavily on technology. 5G as an example, right? 5G is not only a solution which enterprises will use. It is a solution that somebody way too remote in a village or a town would use in order to ensure that they achieve their business goals. What does it mean is, as the demand for technology to be more reliable, more stronger, more secure, and being available at all point in time increases, enterprises now are pushed in order to make these technology more consumable. This is purely from an example of 5G. If you look at even physical work places, with hybrid being the way to go, we are now looking at innovative ways of how do we ensure that people can still work from their home location, but they get the experience what any other employee would get if they are in their office location. How do we ensure that it is secure? Better collaboration is achieved among all these diverse group of people who now are not limited by the location. They can be sitting in any corner of the world. How do we get technology to ensure that this is driven? And in a country like ours, where digital transformation boomed in last 3 years at a scale which we couldn't have imagined, it becomes much more impactful when we have technology that are helping these businesses achieve their goal. Now, the example here which fits the use case is, if you look at how UPI has changed the way we did financial transaction. Now, every business, no matter what the scale is, they rely on this mode of payment in order to get their business up and running. If they are not relying on that business, it is a risk that they run with that will make them obsolete. Net, if we look at all of these examples, the ones which Ashwin mentioned and ones which I mentioned, they are purely relying on how is the technology usable, how are businesses leveraging this technology to make them successful, which now becomes a very key factor in pushing all large enterprises to come up with technologies that will transform businesses and not only tap into our target niche areas which are not working at scale. So to summarize, modernization of business and the end user experience is the single most key driver for any transformation that happens at a technology level is what I would say.
Great. Wonderful.
Maybe if you could add to that, right? I think it's great perspectives from industry veterans here, and I think I completely agree. One of the things that we really believe is a key transformation driver is just the skill, right, in terms of working on some of these advanced technologies. And we did some analysis on some of these skills and the skill gap of some of the niche skills in 5G, IoT, AI, etc. And it was very surprising for us, pleasantly surprising for us to see that the only country that has a significant reducing supply, talent supply demand gap is actually India, right? And that's and in just in terms of numbers, where the global average would be 35% supply demand gap, India would stand at about 10 to 15%, which clearly shows that any talent acquisition team that would go out and find talent would be most successful perhaps in a country like India, right? And that's largely linked to the large young workforce that we have, which can be quickly reskilled into some of these technologies, as well as structured curriculums that academia running and government initiatives and programs around that. I think that's going to be one of the key differentiators for any organization to really lead the race in terms of one, technology prowess, and I think India plays a critical role in the scheme of things.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Faraz. Thanks for adding those insights. It's nicely rounded up. Okay, so thanks Faraz for those insights. Those were really some great thoughts. In the same vein, it would be interesting to understand which are the key mainstream technologies such as cloud, cybersecurity, AI, ML, NLP, etc., and emerging technologies such as 5G, 6G, Wi-Fi 6, 7, quantum computing, metaverse, and so on, disrupting the telecom and networking GCC space. So connectivity technologies such as 5G, 6G certainly give us give a major fillip to the sector. But apart from those, how does the overall tech stack or convergence of technologies look like in your respective organizations? And for this question, I would request Raghu to help us with his inputs first. So over to you, Raghu.
Sure thing. Now, it is interesting to note here that while we have individual technologies which are helping solve point problems, from a user perspective, what they're looking at is how do we solve their business problem? And in order to solve that business problem, the entire technology has to work with each other in a seamless way. Else the user experience will not be as smooth. Now, for a tech stack to converge, one important thing to look at is how are we giving visibility into the networks on top of which these businesses are running, which means all the technology solution have to talk and interact with each other in as easier way as a layman who is running his or her business on top of it can maintain it, which means there is scope of predictive networks and innovations around how we can leverage things like telemetry, preempting user experience on the issues that they will run into when they are using the technology stack becomes crucial. So these touch points, in addition to just being available and up at all the time, they have to be secure. In order to ensure that these are secured, we'll have to start looking at these solutions when being built right from day one. We cannot add technology on top of our existing technology as a stopgap solution. They have to be designed in a way where they taper towards the common use case of making it more usable. Now, you took the example of cybersecurity, AI, ML, NLP, cloud. Now, if you look at cloud and cybersecurity, AI, ML, it all revolves around user data. In some of the cases, we don't even know where our data is stored. Is it in a data center in a particular region, or is it located in a cloud service offering where the location is invisible to the end user? So all of these in a standalone way do not mean anything much. So the technologies have to work with each other, which leads to a very important point of compatibility. When we build these technologies, we have to ensure that they are compatible both with pre-existing technologies as well as the new technology that come in. And hence, building technology solution in silos is not going to help anyone, because it would be obsolete the moment a newer technology comes in, which can bring the value add of seamlessly integrating with other solution. Now, I did emphasize on the security aspect heavily, because security has now become a part and parcel of every business use case, not what it was maybe a decade back, where it was always an afterthought. So what it means is, when you're designing these solutions, all these aspects have to be on the drawing board right from day one. It cannot be taken as a afterthought, because when we give this solution to businesses, the businesses live with this solution for a longer period of time. So how easy it is for them to maintain this solution, how easy it is for them to expand on the solutions that they get from technology companies, becomes very crucial in determining how successful they are and what is the return on investment they get out of it.
Right.
So this is very important in ensuring that the overall tech stack eventually converges, and organizations who are building these solutions for their customers develop unified solution rather than point product solution which solve a specific use case, because maintaining it for a customer becomes a very complex and uphill task. So that is my take on how technology stack should converge to drive simplified business use cases for the customers.
Great, great. No, really, those were some great points, Raghu. Thanks for your inputs. Ashwin would like to come over to you for understanding your thoughts on the same question as well.
Sure. I think very well put by Raghu. I'll just try to add some nuances to whatever he just called out, right? Just taking the thread of whatever we are talking all through, which is customer experience and user experience.
Right.
We are trying to look at how we can provide connected experience to customers across channels and across the different points of their journey, right? And once we do that through the solutions and products that we offer for them.
Right.
What invariably seen is the foundation, which is very important for you to do that at speed, efficiency, is what we call as the architecture behind it, or the functional stack, or the technology stack that's behind it, for you to offer these solutions consistently in the right way, in an agile way. I think that's what Raghu also touched a little bit on. So you cannot just look at point solutions. You need to have an underlying architecture, and you should have an underlying functional stack linked back to the technologies which are directional for you. And constantly along with that, you also start thinking about what is the future that holds for us. So that's where we constantly keep looking at what is the technology hype cycles, what are the new technology that's coming in, how that in a way would enable towards serving the customer better. So that's how it all links back together. And one of the key component in that whole structuring and architecture is also the data architecture and structuring as well. And very pertinent point from Raghu is that as we are exposed to large volumes of data, what's also important is how well we keep the security aspects in mind towards how we deal with this data in a very secured way and in the right way. And for that, I think you need to have a very well built data architecture. And once you do that, I think you will be able to take actionable insights from this large volume of data. And that's where you start harnessing the value. And this value can harness consistently because you have a foundation that's very well laid out, where all of your technologies converge. And you also have a very clear architecture that's laid out in terms of how you can deliver consistent experience to the customers.
Correct. No, great thoughts, great insights. Thanks so much, Aswin, for those insights. Faraz, anything you would like to add to those insights from an overall perspective on the previous two questions?
Absolutely, I think it's wonderful to hear from the industry leaders in terms of what they are really trying to solve for, and customer experience, user experience, along with just seamless integration of these experiences, I'd like to call it. Critical, right? I think I completely agree with that. Just a couple of things, right? In my opinion, one of the things that we often see amiss in the ecosystem is how can organizations collaborate at the local level, right? In essence, most of the organizations are solving for the same purpose, but can we see more collaboration between organizations, right? Cooperation, co-opetition, like they say, right? In terms of really building solutions together. One, I think that will hugely and immensely help the ecosystem overall. Um, uh, you know, in terms of not reinventing the wheel in silos, but how can we get together? Because a lot of times when we think about partnerships, we typically root it at the headquarters levels, right? But can there be more collaboration at the local India level, because you're solving for the similar challenges? One, and how also apart from that, also working with the larger value chain of providers, like your suppliers, your customers. So how can you partner with your with the larger value chain entities more at the local level is something that we are yet to see in the ecosystem. But I think, given the ambitions that both Aswin and Raghu spoke about, I think that's something that we're going to see in the times to come.
Right, right. No, absolutely, absolutely. That's thanks Faraz for those insights. Okay, so with this we come to the end of episode 1 of our discussion about key GCC trends that are transforming the telecom and networking landscape. Our conversation with Faraz, Aswin, and Raghu will continue. So stay tuned for the upcoming episode of this discussion, where we will talk about location strategy, talent, and building a sustainable and inclusive culture. Please like, share, and subscribe to the NASCOM Community and Insights YouTube channel. Till then, it's goodbye from everyone here at NASCOM Insights.